Thank you. Good evening. So tonight we're going to be talking about hormones. And sometimes this is the missing link. And men and women have hormones. And every man is born of a woman. And if the lady's hormones is out of balance when she gives birth to her son, it will affect his hormones. And if the lady's hormones are out of balance when she gives birth to her female, they'll be out of balance. And I'm so glad there are a few men here, because every man is married to a wife, and every man has a daughter or a sister, and it explains so much when you realise how the hormones work and what is throwing them out. And the good news is they can be brought back into balance. Notice what our sex hormones are made from. They're made from a very important lipid in the body called cholesterol. And going on cholesterol-lowering medication, I believe, is very unwise and very unsafe. And we had a look at, when we looked at heart, how cholesterol is not the cause of heart disease. It's just plugging up the holes from damage to the arterial walls. You can't make your vitamin D levels unless you've got enough cholesterol, and you cannot make your sex hormones properly unless you've got enough cholesterol. From cholesterol, the body makes pregnenolone. And it's from pregnenolone that progesterone is made. Progesterone is a key hormone because progesterone is the precursor to a whole lot of other hormones. And so we're just going to do a few that play an important role in the monthly cycle. Estrogen, we often call that the female hormone, and it's from progesterone that estrogen's made. And testosterone. Testosterone is often called the male hormone. But the fact is, every man has estrogen and testosterone. Every woman has estrogen and testosterone, but in different amounts. It is from progesterone that the adrenal hormones are made. And the adrenal hormones, they're often called the fight and the flight hormones. And every month, these hormones come on and off like players come onto a stage. So I'm going to explain the monthly dance like a dance on a stage. So the monthly cycle is like a dance. Different players come onto the stage at different times of the month. And the monthly cycle is approximately a 28-day cycle. So we've got 7, 14, 21 and 28. So let's have a look at how these different hormones work together in this 28-day cycle. Progesterone in this monthly cycle, or the monthly dance, is going to be wearing a green outfit. And progesterone's nickname is happy hormone. What's the old saying? Happy wife, happy life? There are many unhappy homes because the lady has a progesterone deficiency, and we're going to be looking why that would happen in a minute. The other hormone, the main hormone in this monthly cycle, is estrogen. And estrogen's role in the body is that of a cell proliferator. Cell proliferator means causes massive cell growth. And day 1 of the monthly cycle is the day that a woman begins to menstruate. And day 1 of the monthly cycle, progesterone levels are low, or you could say progesterone is backstage, so to speak. And day 1 of the monthly cycle, estrogen levels are also low or backstage. But by day 7, progesterone levels start to rise. No, not progesterone, estrogen. This second week of the month is the week where estrogen levels are the highest and estrogen activity is most prolific. So we're going to go to the stage where the monthly cycle plays out. And this is the reproductive organs of a woman's body. So here's the uterus, here is the cervix, this is the birth canal, And these are the fallopian tubes that come out of the top of the uterus. And connected by a ligament are the ovaries. So at this time of the month, estrogen, as its levels are high, is causing massive cell growth in the lining of the uterus. Remember, week 1 was when this blood nest came away. But week 2, with the rise in estrogen levels, the blood nest is once again building up. Estrogens, with its cell proliferator action, is causing massive cell growth in the ovaries, causing eggs to develop. Estrogen is also causing a form of lubricant to be released in the birth canal. By day 14, in some women it might be 13 or 15, a fully developed egg bursts forth from the ovaries, and the little filaments on the end of the fallopian tube pull the egg up, and the egg comes up into the fallopian tubes, and the fallopian tubes are ever moving like this, causing the egg to move up, up, up. Now that hole where the egg bursts forth develops a blister. And that blister is given the name corpus luteum. I have written that corpus luteum in green because corpus luteum is the main site of progesterone production in a woman's body. Can you see now the importance of a woman ovulating every month? An ovulation is basically the egg released from the ovary, because every month when the egg's released, corpus luteum's made. And corpus luteum, every month when it develops, it maintains progesterone levels. And progesterone is a key hormone because it balances all the other hormones. So there's no need for estrogen anymore. We've got our blood nest, we've got our egg, our lubricant. And so estrogen is given the message, you can go backstage now, we don't need you anymore. With the development of corpus luteum, at around day 14, we now get a rise in progesterone levels. So what effect does this rise in progesterone have? Progesterone has a ripening effect on the lining of the uterus, putting the finishing touches on the blood nest. Progesterone also heightens a woman's mood at this time of the month, being the happy hormone, to the point of increasing her sexual desire at this time of the month. But progesterone has another effect, and that is on the cervix. So let me magnify the cervix. Magnified, the cervix looks like a little plump cushion with a hole in the middle. And on the side, looking at it from sideways, the cervix basically looks like this, with this it's like a little mucus plug. But at this time of the month, with the rise in progesterone, this mucus plug goes, the little sides of the cushion come up tighter, and a special form of lubricant is released around the cervix. And this lubricant is designed to facilitate the entry of sperm up into the uterus. So you can see the stage is set for the entry of man. Did you know that between 2 and 500 million sperm are released with one ejaculation? It's the smallest cell in the human body, and sometimes up to half of that sperm comes back out. And if the sperm meet this top cervix, difficult to gain entry, but it usually gains entry because it's so tiny. But if the sperm meet this cervix, this lubricant literally grabs that sperm and shoots it up into the uterus. And it's got a long way to go, long journey. And some of them go down the wrong road and up they die and get absorbed away. But some go down the right road and aha, they've found their prize. I was watching a documentary once and it had magnified this, and there was a photograph with 15 sperm all trying to gain entry into the egg, but only one does. So the covering of the egg looks like this. And what the sperm has to do is it has to nudge its way in to one of the folds, and it's not easy. And when it does nudge its way in, it lets go of its tail. Now, when that sperm enters into the egg, all the other folds close up tight, and a chemical is released to kill off any other sperm that might try and get in. Occasionally, two sperm enter at the split-second same time, and that's when the twins share the placenta. Isn't it a miracle any of us are here? When you have a look at everything that has to be in place for the conception of a human being. So let me comment for a moment on sperm. Sperm is an alien to a woman's body. And when sperm enters woman's body, her immune system rises to attack it. But when sperm goes through the prostate gland of a man, it takes on an immune suppressant property. So when woman's immune system rises to attack, the immune suppressant property of sperm knocks back her immune system and sperm survives. But woman's body has memory, and every time her husband's sperm enters her, her immune system rises to attack and says, oh, it's husband, we'll just stand back. But can you imagine how damaging it is if a woman has multiple partners? It has a very damaging effect on her immune system. And can you imagine how damaging it is in the area of anal sex? It can be devastating to the immune system. So what happens if there is no conception? But first of all, what happens if there is conception? In conception, progesterone levels soar 200%. Don't we often say when a woman's pregnant, she's blossoming? That's because her happy hormone levels are high. What if a woman is not blossoming in pregnancy? That would indicate a lack of progesterone. Why? We'll be looking at that in a minute. There is one progesterone, only one, but there is a family of estrogens. So the family of estrogen is estrone, and estrone is called E1. There's estradiol, and estradiol is called E2. And the third estrogen is called estriol, and estriol is called E3. Now, estrone and estradiol, E1 and E2, they both have strong cell proliferator action, whereas estriol is the delicate estrogen, and it is estriol levels that rise in pregnancy. But if there's no conception, by day 26, estrogen levels drop right down. By day 26, progesterone levels drop right down. And when both of these levels drop, the blood supply to the uterus is cut. And when the blood supply to the uterus is cut, the blood nest comes away, and we are once again at day 1 of the monthly cycle. An amazing process. Unfortunately, there aren't many cycles that look like that today. Why would that be? We'll have a look at that. But what would be some of the symptoms of an imbalance in the monthly cycle? What would be the symptoms? Let's look at the female first. The female symptoms would be early periods. Normal is 16 to 18, but you hardly ever hear of that today. We're getting young girls that are getting their periods at the age of 8 and 9. It's almost as if some of their childhood's been taken away. And if they're getting their periods at 9, what are they thinking about at 13 or 14? Something they shouldn't be thinking about till it's time to marry. Another symptom of a female having a hormonal imbalance can be very heavy periods, can be very painful periods. Also, tender breasts, premenstrual tension can be another symptom. Breast cancer, uterine cancer, fibroids in the uterus, polycystic ovarian syndrome, cysts on the ovaries, thyroid problems. You see, the imbalance that is caused is high estrogen with its cell proliferator action. That's what's causing the fibroids. That's what's causing the polycystic ovarian syndrome. That's what's causing the cysts on the ovaries. And high estrogen opposes thyroid function. And this estrogen dominance and progesterone deficiency, that's causing the premenstrual tension. That's causing the depression, the anxiety. So what causes the imbalance? Let's have a look. Number one is the contraceptive pill. Contraceptive pill was introduced to women in 1957. 1960s is called the sexual revolution. Women wanted to be able to have sex without falling pregnant. But men and women have paid a very high price for that so-called sexual freedom. What is the pill? How does it work? The pharmaceutical companies grow acres and acres of Mexican wild yam. This Mexican wild yam contains a plant chemical called diosgenin. And in a laboratory, diosgenin can be converted to progesterone. It's called progesterone because it has an identical molecular structure to the progesterone that is found in a woman's body. But the pharmaceutical company cannot patent that. They can only patent something they create, something new. So they add a few more atoms in one area and come up with this synthetic estrogen. They add a few more atoms in another area and come up with a synthetic progesterone. It's called progestin or progestone. Does that help? By the way, before the 1990s, all the pill was straight estrogen, but it was causing so many problems. It was causing breast cancer, it was causing endometriosis, it was causing fibroids. Because this high estrogen causing cell proliferator in all the reproductive organs. And so they had to do something. So now they put a synthetic progesterone in it. Does that help? No, not at all, because that synthetic progesterone blocks the receptor site for your natural progesterone. You can't play with the body cycles and there not be an effect. One young girl got a patch sewn into her arm. Some young girls have told me that they don't have a period for 3 years with the patch in their arm. No period for 3 years, no ovulation for 3 years, no corpus luteum for 3 years. Where's corpus luteum going? But let's go back to just the pill. A lady takes the pill for 3 weeks and then she takes a sugar pill for 3 weeks. And when she takes the pill, her body thinks, must be pregnant. So because it thinks it's pregnant, it doesn't release the egg. And because it doesn't release the egg, corpus luteum is not being made. You see, this is progesterone and it should be the number one hormone. But month after month on the pill, no ovulation, no corpus luteum, where's progesterone going? A month after month on the pill with its synthetic estrogen, where's estrogen going? That's the number one cause of this estrogen dominance, progesterone deficiency. I liken estrogen to fire and water. Good slave, bad master. I think there's trouble in the southern states at the moment with a tornado. Too much rain. Roofs are flying up, flooding. And yet we need our water. You might have heard about the fires in 2019. I came back from being overseas and I drove onto a black property. We've got 450 acres, the whole property was black. It was just a miracle we didn't lose anything. And yet right now, at Misty Mountain Health Retreat, they're lighting fires in our houses every night to keep warm. So I liken estrogen to fire and water. Good slave, bad master. Estrogen's necessary. That's what causes the skinny, scrawny young girl to develop into a beautiful, shapely woman. But if estrogen remains too high, the beautiful, shapely woman gets out of shape the other way. It's not that estrogen's bad. It's only when it's in high amounts. And can you see what that contraceptive pill is doing? Elaine Hollingsworth, she is a health writer in Australia. She wrote a book called How to Eliminate the Sickness Industry. We've been learning that this week, haven't we? She calls the pill the mass murderer of millions of women. Ooh, strong words. So what's happening to the women who are on the pill in their 20s, 30s? The baby boomers. I was a baby boomer. Every girl I know was on the pill. No one thought there was anything wrong. And now there's women are going through menopause. How are they faring? Hot flushes. Too much estrogen. Hot flushes, weight gain, can't lose weight, depressed. No desire for sex, and when they have sex, it's painful. They are, of all women, most miserable. One woman said to me, I'm a CEO of a big company, I'm in a board meeting, I'm chairing the board meeting, and suddenly I get a hot flash. Perspiration's dripping out of me. It's very embarrassing. So she goes to the doctor and says, help. So what does he give her? Hormone replacement therapy, more synthetic hormones. She's happy the hot flushes have stopped. Why have the hot flushes stopped? Because now the body thinks it's pregnant. So instead of putting the energies into the capillary dilation and hot flushes, it's now going into the internal, the breast, the uterus. 6 years later, she notices a lump on her breast. She has it tested, she's got breast cancer. The doctor takes her off hormone replacement therapy immediately. Why? He knows it can cause breast cancer. So you say to the physician, why do you do that? He said she was suffering and it brought her relief. That's true. And not every woman will get breast cancer. That's true. I don't know about you, but I don't want to play Russian roulette with my life. And if you say to the women, what would you prefer, breast cancer or hot flushes? What's the answer? Bring on the flushes. I'll have a shower. I'll get a black lace fan. And I've had a few ladies come to our retreat with black lace fans. What about the children of the women who are on the pill? What's happening to them? My son, in his 30s, 3 of his mates, his best mates, friends, lost their wives from breast cancer. 1 in 4 women getting breast cancer. This is this high estrogen. I'm shocked the amount of young women I meet who are on antidepressants. Where's their progesterone? Down here. And if you go on antidepressants when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, what's going to happen? Where's the end for this? What's it going to be like when you're 20? What's it going to be like when you're 25? That's not doing it anymore. What do we need now? More medication. Drugs never cure disease. If you are on any medication, Google it and have a look at the side effects. You got it. Because it's your life that you're playing with here. And if a lady is on antidepressants and she wants to have another baby, what sort of gene pool is she going to give that baby? Endometriosis. 70 years ago, there was 1 in 10,000 cases of endometriosis. Now it's estimated 10 million cases of endometriosis in America alone. What's endometriosis? The endometrium is the name of the tissue lining the uterus, endometrium. So too much estrogen, too much endometrium, the endometrium starts wandering all through the abdominal wall, and then in day 26 when the levels drop and the blood nest bleeds, these bleed but they've got nowhere to go. And terrible pain. One 25-year-old girl said to me, my doctor says I'll be okay when I go through menopause. When's she going to go through menopause? In another 25 years? And so the solution is to go under general anaesthetic and get all these little pockets burnt out. It's called a diathermy needle. I used to work in operating theatre. They just burn them all out. But if you don't turn the tap off, if you don't stop the cause, they're all just going to grow back again. We can't play with the human body and expect that nothing's going to happen. But the trouble is, I believe we've trusted the authorities too much. Psalm 146, verse 3, it says, "Put not your trust in princes." Who are the princes? The authorities. "Put not your trust in princes, neither in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help. Their breath goes forth, they return unto the earth, in that very day their thoughts perish. Happy is he that hath the God of Jacob as his help, whose hope is in the Lord, whose God, which maketh heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in there is." He made us. He made us to heal. He made us to naturally balance. And there are herbs that will work with our body to do that. What about the guys whose mother was on the pill before they gave birth to them? These are the young men with low sperm count. These are the young men with penile dysfunction. Do you know the current figures in Australia are 40% of men over the age of 50 are struggling with penile dysfunction. One man who's a nurse in a clinic in Australia, he said, "We had a 21-year-old man come to us wanting help for his wedding night." Why? This is not normal. And too much of the female hormone can cause a man to be effeminate, and too much of the male hormone can cause a woman to be masculine. I don't know about you, but sometimes in the airport or in crowds I'll look over, is that a man or is that a woman? You have a look at crowd scenes in the 50s, women look like women and men look like men. And it's crept up so slowly. In Australia, you're almost not allowed to talk about this. But we got to, and I'm just giving you the signs. But there are some people who are suffering from hormonal imbalance and they've never been on the pill and their mother was never on the pill. There's more. What causes a chicken to be fully developed in 5 weeks? Growth stimulants. In Australia, it's against the law for cattle farmers to give their cattle growth stimulants. But we had a cattle farmer's wife do our program. She said they knock on our door every month pushing the growth stimulants. And they tell us when to stop giving the growth stimulants to the cow, and then it's not picked up in the blood test at the abattoirs. But it's in the tissues. So meat. And it's product. If it's in the meat, it's in the product. We had a young guy do our program. He was 30. He said, "I've got 2 friends." He said, "One's 6'6", one's 6'4". And the mother is 5'2" and the father's 5'10". Where'd this come from? Well, the father owns a chook farm. Of course, am I educating you? A chook farm is a chicken farm. That's Australian. We call it a chook farm. So what are they eating? Morning, noon and night. If their father owns a chook farm, chicken farm. Chickens, eggs. It's in the chicken, it's in the eggs, and whoo, here are these sons from the growth stimulants. Well, what about fish? Well, when you've got 80% of women on the pill or HRT, going to the toilet, the sewage goes out to sea, the fish are feeding on the sewage, and some fish farms, they're given growth stimulants. And the fish isn't the end of the food chain, is it? And a lot of people are eating fish today thinking that it's the healthier meat, but not true. Not true. Personally, I choose to eat plants. I eat plants. But there's more. There are some people who have been vegetarian all their lives and never been on the pill. There's more. Plastics. My brother was 2 years older than me, so when he was 18, he got his first car and it was a Zephyr. So this is 1960s. Second-hand car. Oh, he loved his car. Don't boys love their first cars? Second-hand car, but the dashboard was cracked. And those from my era, remember when the dashboard always cracked? So David put turquoise fur on it and a cow that the head goes up and down. That's very 60s, isn't it? Have you noticed that dashboards don't crack anymore? It's because there's a chemical in them called nonylphenol. And when I was a little girl, if a plastic bottle was left out in the sun, it cracked. They don't do that anymore. That's because they have nonylphenol. So what's the point of this? Estrogen has a phenyl ring, and that phenyl ring is the key to get into the estrogen receptor site in the cell. These chemicals in plastics have the phenyl ring. Another one is bisphenol A. And you'll notice that some healthy plastic bottles have BPA free on it. That's because it hasn't got any bisphenol A in it. So they're usually the hard plastics. If you can squeeze the plastic, it's usually got one of the phenols in it. So plastics. So let's have a look at babies. They often suck on plastic toys. And you call it a pacifier, it's often plastic. My daughter cost her $15, but she got a pacifier made out of rubber. It's worth it. If we think we've got problems now, you wait for the next generation. Are they going to be getting, the girls are getting their periods when they're 7 and 8? Eee. So be careful on the exposure that the little ones have. You can get baby bottles that are BPA free. Be careful of, you call them diapers. You go to Trader Joe's, you can get them diapers made out of starch. So these are things to think of, because like the dripping tap on a stone, they're having an effect. So we should be drinking out of stainless steel. I'm drinking out of a plastic bottle. That's because I'm travelling and the water in the tap's not great. But you know what? Next week I won't be drinking out of a plastic bottle. It's not the odd day you drink out of a plastic bottle or the odd day you don't. It's what you drink out of every day that has the effect. A great present for little ones is to give them little stainless steel bottles. So they've got a stainless steel bottle, or the hard plastic that is BPA free. What else? Herbicides, insecticides. One of the most dangerous herbicide, and it was in, I think it was about 2016, Sri Lanka banned Roundup or glyphosate because so many rice farmers were getting cancer, and it's particularly the endocrine cancers. But you know what's unfortunate? In 2020, they legalised it again because of pressure from the big companies. Is it safe now? No, it's not safe. So as much as possible, we should be buying organics. Chemicals, get the chemicals. I think we've been talking about this a fair bit. So please, ladies, look at your underwear. Get the chemicals away. Get the chemicals away from your body. In those fabrics, your polyester, acrylic and nylon. They're really plastic fabrics. And go more for your modal, which is wood pulp, viscose wood pulp, linens, cottons. Because every time we get hot, and it's getting quite warm here in Nebraska, and our pores open, the fabric that's touching the skin takes it in. So how do we turn this around? And by the way, these chemical estrogens, we call them estrogen mimicals because they got the phenyl ring, they're called xenoestrogens. And these xenoestrogens, they have strong cell proliferator action. So you can have someone whose mother was never on the pill, they've never been on the pill, they're vegetarians, but big exposure to plastics, herbicides and chemicals, and they can have a hormonal imbalance. For some people, it's all of that. For some people, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So how do we turn it around? If you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. So number one, eliminate. Eliminate the pill. So how are we going to stop having babies popping up everywhere? Sex is 2-part, contraception should be 2-part. And God gave a woman 3 signs to know when she's ovulating. One sign is that her temperature changes. So it's as simple as taking the temperature before you get out of bed every day and monitoring it. And what a lady will find that is her temperature will do this, then it'll drop and go up onto a higher plane. Now that drop and up onto a higher plane is her indication that she's begun to ovulate, and it'll usually happen around day 14. It might be 13, it might be 15. It allows her to identify when she begins ovulating. That's sign number one. Sign number two is that the vaginal mucus changes. When the estrogen's high, the lubricant is usually white and not as profuse, but when progesterone levels are high, the lubricant is a lot more profuse, it's clear and stringy. So she just monitors it every day, and when she's charting her temperature, she also charts her observations there, and she will start to see the changes. The third sign is that the cervix changes. So it's as simple as a lady checks her cervix every day. At first she's got nothing to compare it to, but as the days and the weeks and the months go by, she starts to see the changes. And she will find that these three signs usually come together in this third week of the monthly cycle. So this will be her unsafe week. And these signs take the guesses out. My daughter Jessica, she said to me, "Mum, I've got an app on my phone." She said, "I put my temperature in every morning and look," and she showed me, she said, "Yeah, I'm safe at the moment." So this app on her phone tells her whether she's safe or not safe. So she says to her husband here, "I'm safe." This week she says, "I'm not safe." And so what he does is he either masters the art of withdrawal or he wears a condom. I was reading a report or an article on Italian men, how Italian men prided themselves on not getting their women pregnant by mastering the art of withdrawal. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because in our society today, the lady has to have her tubes tied, the lady has to have an IUD, the lady has to have the pill. But in this one, the men are taking control. What about a vasectomy? I don't agree with vasectomies, and I don't agree with cutting the tubes, because whenever you start cutting things in the body, there's going to be a result. And many women that have their tubes tied end up having to have hysterectomies, and they still haven't looked or studied the link between how many men have vasectomies that develops into prostate problems later in life. The body was designed to function well. It was designed to heal itself. But whenever you interfere with the systems in the body, there's going to be a result. My daughter Jessica and her husband Matthew, they were married for nearly 4 years before Amethyst appeared. How nice. How nice for a young couple to have a few years together before the little darlings come. Because if a young couple haven't established their relationship, a child can be a challenge. Especially if they don't agree, as we looked at this morning. So eliminate the pill. It's very dangerous. And my daughter was in the car with a few of her friends and they were going somewhere. And the girls were saying, "Oh, I love the pill. If I'm travelling, I just don't take the sugar pill. I just keep taking the pill, then I don't get a period. It's so great when you're travelling." And my daughter was quiet. And they said, "Jess, you don't take the pill, do you?" She said, "No." They said, "Why not?" She said, "It's like this, buy now, pay later." And it is true. And they don't realise the cost to themselves and also to the next generation. Eliminate meat and its products. If you like meat and its products and want to eat it, it must be organic. It's really unsafe today because, did you know 80% of the antibiotics they make go to the animals? There's a lot of chemicals used. There's a lot of time they're feeding on grass that used to be sprayed with DDT. There's a lot of stuff. One lady said, "Well, if it's going to be organic, I'm not going to be eating much of it." And I said, "Well, that sounds good." More plant foods. I think it's impossible to eliminate plastic. It's handy stuff. But just reduce your exposure as much as possible. One of the worst is hot soup into a plastic takeaway container, because heating the plastic releases more of the phenols. And you've probably read articles about those plastic bottles in hot cars. The heating up releases more of the chemicals into the water. Now, you might buy a whole slab of water and you might drink all the water bottles, but if you keep that water bottle and keep reusing it, more and more of those phenols are released. Eliminate the herbicides, insecticides, go organic as much as possible. A lot of your shops have organic sections, don't they? So it's not hard to go organic. And get the chemicals. I think most people are already doing this, giving their laundry cupboards a cleanse, getting the chemicals out of the house, out of the home. That's turning the tap off. Number 2, your liver, as the main organ of detoxification, can detoxify you from excess estrogen. And it does it down one of 2 pathways. One is the hydroxy-2 pathway, and if the estrogen is sent down the hydroxy-2 pathway, it's out. The other pathway is the hydroxy-16 pathway. If it goes down the hydroxy-16 pathway, it comes back in 100 times worse. Well, we don't want that pathway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a list of foods and vitamins and herbs that stimulate, we'll call it highway, stimulate highway 2, inhibit highway 16. The cabbage family. The cabbage family contain a plant chemical called indoles. And indoles stimulate highway 2 and inhibit highway 16. That's good news. So this is cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and kale, bok choy, and also sauerkraut. So they all contain the indoles, so it's simple as eating something from the cabbage family every day. Also vitamin B, vitamin B6, B9 and B12 are the 3 B vitamins that stimulate highway 2, inhibit highway 16. Licorice, if you've got high blood pressure, forget this one, because it can pep up the blood pressure. And I'm not talking about many licorices that are the lollies or the candies. They haven't got a lot of real licorice in them, and they've got a lot of sugar and wheat in them. But you can get, in some health food shops, you can just get pure little licorice things to suck on that are just licorice. And flaxseed. Many people grind this up with their coffee grinder, put it on their breakfast every day. It's a great way to have it. Please grind it up just before you use it, because it deteriorates quite quickly. So number 1 is turning the tap off. Number 2 is getting rid of the excess estrogen. And number 3 is the yam cream. So yam cream, and you can buy a few yam creams in your like Trader Joe type shops. But the one we have in Australia is called Anna's. Because my lectures have gone a bit viral, Anna's wild yam cream in Australia were unprepared for the onslaught of everyone wanting Anna's wild yam cream, so they sold out. But it should be available again mid-June. Well, we are mid-June, so any time now it should be available. So this yam cream, the Anna's yam cream, how does that work? It contains the plant chemical diosgenin. It does not contain progesterone. You can get progesterone cream, but if you keep applying progesterone cream, your body can get lazy and not make your own progesterone. If someone's having hot flushes, just found out they've got breast cancer, I think the progesterone cream can give them a kick start. It's the bioidentical, you may have heard. So for some women, that can give a kick start. But really, after four months, they then should go on the Anaziam cream, because it contains diosgenin. It's applied to the skin, the fat cells pick it up, and it stimulates the pathway that your body uses to make its own progesterone. So this cream is superior to the progesterone cream because it stimulates your body to make its own. How do you apply it? It's usually one finger dip. I used to say the first knuckle, but one lady thought that was the first knuckle and went through the whole jar in a month. So now I say nail bed, up to the nail bed. One finger dip, twice a day. Inside of arms one time, chest another time, inside of thighs another time, abdomen another time. So you alternate the sites of application. And this cream is applied for 3 weeks a month, and it's this 3 weeks here where the progesterone is the highest. So the simplest way to remember when to apply it is when you're not menstruating. So when a lady's menstruating, she stops the cream. This is applied twice a day, 3 weeks a month. What if a lady is not menstruating anymore? Well, she stops for 1 week of the month. Some ladies choose the first or the last week of the month, then it's easier to remember. Ideally, the cream should be used for at least 1 year. Sometimes the hormones have been out for 30 years. The good news is it won't take 30 years to get it back into balance, but it might take a year or two. One lady said, I tried this cream and it didn't work. I said, how long did you use it for? She said, 2 months. Well, let me show you what's happening after 2 months. This lady had a major hormonal imbalance. Estrogen was too high, progesterone was low. Where are we after 2 months? We're about here. Where do we want to be? We want to be here. So even though it may take a year to fully balance, often women are seeing results within a month. One lady said that after 1 month on the Anaziam cream, her blood loss halved. I've had ladies saying, thank you for giving my daughter back. One lady said, when my daughter turned 13, she grew horns. And what happened to our sweet little girl? And that mother didn't realise that the pills she'd been on for 5 years before she gave birth to her little girl, it had affected the gene pool that she'd given to her little girl. But the good news is she heard about the cream, and within a couple of months the horns went in. And she had a happier little girl. I said to one lady, do you get premenstrual tension? She said, no, I just hate my husband for a week every month. She's got it. Michael had a secretary once, and for 1 week a month, you couldn't even go into the office. Usually you'd say, could you photocopy this, please? Sure. On that week, you'd say, could you I've already got enough to do. I said to Michael, you've got to talk to that girl. No one can go anywhere near the office in that week. One man told me that for 1 week of the month, his wife was just unbearable. He'd come home from work and she was still in her pyjamas. The breakfast dishes were still on the table. The kids were running riot. And if he said anything, she just lost it. He said for 3 weeks we'd try and prepare her. It's coming. That week, it's coming. Oh, it'll be fine. And then, explosion. Do you know what I think's sad is the amount of women and families that are living like this for years, if only they knew. If only they knew there was help. And there was very simple help. Let's have a look at the lady that's going through menopause. Her thyroid's not working well anymore. She doesn't realise the pill that she was on for 5 years before she had babies caused her estrogen to go high, which opposed her thyroid function, caused progesterone, her happy hormone, to go down, so she's on antidepressants, she's on thyroid medication, she can't lose weight, sex is painful, she's of all women most miserable. So she goes to the doctor, he gives her antidepressants, which boosts her mood a little bit, but you know, eventually it doesn't. And yet she can't go off them because now she's addicted. It's a vicious cycle. He puts her on HRT, which stops the flushes, but it doesn't help her desire for sex or her pain in sex. It doesn't help her weight gain. So she comes to our retreat and she hears this lecture. The light bulb goes off. She begins the Anna's Wild Yam Cream and she begins implementing the Sustain Me principles. She starts getting in the sunshine every day. Do you know that those sun's rays go to the pituitary gland and help balance your hormones? She starts drinking more water. Did you know that coffee and sugar disrupt the hormones? And in the book Sugar Blues, William Duffy, he talks about it, that high sugar is almost like it's feeding that high estrogen. And in Australia, the Australian Health Department have issued a warning that estrogen is a known human carcinogen. It causes cancer. Eee! So she eases off her coffee. She goes on a 2-day fast and she's able to go back on more vegetables, more legumes, nuts, seeds, some fruits, and her sugar cravings go. She stops her nightly red wine. She starts to eat more cabbage. She starts to go to bed earlier. She implements those Sustain Me principles. And there's a change in her life. Do you know what she finds? Her mood increases. So little by little, she starts to ease off the antidepressants. Oh, isn't that good news? You know what one man said to me? "Thank you for giving me my wife back." I didn't give him his wife back. What his wife did is she implemented these principles. But what about the painful sex? The desire for sex can increase as the hormones are balanced. But why sex is painful for many women from their 60s is the lubricant is not made anymore. And the cells that line the birth canal are very, very tender. So there's something else that's becoming popular that is helping. Let me introduce you to something that's called yoni stones. These yoni stones were developed in the Chinese dynasty to help the young concubines be sexually toned for the emperor. And what these stones are, they're 3 stones and they're made out of nephrite jade. And the largest stone is approximately that big. And then the next stone is a little bit smaller. And then the smaller stone is smaller again. And there are 2 holes at the bottom which allows dental floss to be threaded in. And what a woman does is she inserts the largest stone first until it touches the cervix. She won't even feel that it's there. But what happens is her muscles hold the stone. It's like marble. Holds the stone. And because the muscles are holding the stone, the muscles are getting strong. And because the muscles are working there, more blood comes to the area. And because more blood comes to the area, the blood feeds the glands that produce the lubricant. And because the muscles are working to hold that stone, more blood to the area, the blood starts to nourish the little cells that line the birth canal. I've had ladies say to me within 3 months of wearing the stone, sex was no more painful. The lubricant had returned and the cells that line the birth canal are now strong. I also had one man say to me, well, it was a couple that came to me. They said, we feel a bit embarrassed to tell you this, but you've revived our sex life. We are in our late 50s and we basically almost stopped having sex. Because whenever the lady showed a bit of pain, the man found it difficult. And he was not getting an erection like he used to. He said, this cream just puts lead in my pencil. So he's using the cream. And a man certainly can use the cream. And he doesn't have a break because men are not cyclic like women. In fact, one lady said it like this: men are like the sun. They rise every day and they go down every night. Women are like the moon. Sometimes they're full, sometimes they're half, sometimes they're a little slitter. So because men are not cyclic, they just apply it twice a day, every day. And I'll pursue the men a little bit more in a minute. But I want to finish the results of the yoni stones. So the man said to me, yep, this just helps me. I'm not like I was when I was 20, but I'm certainly better than I was. And the lady said, and sex is no longer painful for me. She said, it's very embarrassing for us to talk about, but we just want to thank you. It was the information. Information is power. My daughter Emma, she gave birth to twin girls 18 years ago. They were both 6 pound. And they told her she had to have a Caesar, but she said, no, I'm having my babies naturally, and she did. But ever after, whenever she coughed or laughed, a little bit of urine had come out. Well, you can imagine she's only about an inch taller than me. All that weight down below. She thought, is this me now? And yet she was a woman only in her 30s. And then she heard about the yoni stones. So she started to wear them. And she said after 3 months of wearing the yoni stones, she could laugh, she could cough, and she didn't lose urine. It had strengthened the muscle. Because when you wear that stone, you're strengthening your pelvic girdle internally as it holds the stone. So the directions are, a woman starts with the largest stone. She wears it 1 hour a day for week 1. She wears it 2 hours a day, week 2, 3 hours a day, week 3, 4 hours a day, week 4, 5 hours a day, week 5. For 6 months, she wears it 5 hours a day. By now, her pelvic girdle is strong enough that she can now hold the middle-sized stone. She'll wear that for 5 hours a day for 4 or 5 months, and then she can go to the smaller stone. One lady told me that when she'd finished the larger stone, her 30-year-old daughter said, Mum, can I have the large stone now? This is a lovely heritage to give to your daughters. You see, she'd had a bit of trouble in childbirth and wasn't as strong there. It's just strengthening the pelvic girdle from the inside. That's all it is. There's nothing magical about the stone, it's just a stone. And when the stone's removed, it's just washed with soap and water and put in its little velvet bag or box or however you buy it. We've had a few ladies come with prolapses. And what's a prolapse? That's when the uterus prolapse down to the opening of the birth canal or the vagina. Very uncomfortable. I had 2 ladies in 1 year that had prolapses. The doctor said he could sew it up with mesh. Both times they had the operation with mesh. Both times it had not worked. Now those poor women are suffering with the prolapse and the mesh before finally they could get in to have a total hysterectomy. And then they came to our retreat and they heard about this. So my daughter Jessica, she had home births and her midwife told her this story. Midwife's in her 50s. She said, I had a prolapse. I went to the doctor. He said he could sew it up with mesh. I Googled that. I didn't like the stories I read on the mesh. So she said, I Googled prolapses and I discovered yoni stones. So I ordered the stones. I wore them. She said, after 3 months, I went to the doctor. He said, this is really puzzling, but you don't have a prolapse anymore. Because she'd strengthened her pelvic girdle from the inside. You see, gravity is ever pulling us down, and strength comes by defying gravity. And what we should be doing is, ladies, every day is this. Got that? Squatting. If you can't do that, and how come I can do that so easily? Because when I was pregnant with my 6th baby, I read a book called Active Birth by Janet Velasquez, and she said squat. I could not squat. It was like this. She said squat for 10 minutes a day with your back against the wall, which I did. So by the time I gave birth to William, squatting was very comfortable, and every contraction I squatted. And then the baby was born. The whole baby flew out of me with one push with the bag intact. Woo! That's powerful stuff, that squatting. I can't promise that, but many ladies lose pelvic floor tone. We should not have prolapses. So why does the doctor use mesh when there are so many problems? Because the ladies' muscles are so weak. They're not nourished. The ladies aren't drinking enough water. They're not having nourishing food. And when the doctor goes in, the muscles have no tone and he can't sew it together, so he has to use mesh. So you know what it all comes back on is us. So it's time to strengthen our muscles with good nutrition, to keep the cells well hydrated, to exercise. Strengthen the pelvic girdle from the outside by push-ups. Have you done any push-ups today? Sorry? And rebounding and squatting. And from the inside, some ladies benefit very much by using the yoni stones. So what happens when you're strong? Well, now you've got a wonderful heritage to give to your daughters so that they can strengthen their pelvic girdles internally. In my next lecture, after the break, we're going to have a look at bones. And did you know that the hormone that strengthens the bones is progesterone? So osteoporosis can be a result of a hormonal imbalance. That's one aspect. So please have a break. It is almost 1:15, so we'll have a 15-20 minute break, and when we come back we're going to look at how you can strengthen bones, and if your bones are strong, how you can keep them strong.